Bona tarda a tothom, benvinguts i benvingudes.
Good evening to one and all. Welcome.
Version, please click on the icon below. Moltes gràcies per acompanyar-nos avui en aquesta conferència sobre agroecologia escolar a Catalunya.
Thank you very much for joining us in this webinar on school agroecology in Catalonia. We are going to be looking at different initiatives within this area in our territory, together with Laura Calvet, who is here with me, with the rest of the panelists. We will be looking at different educational proposals with Laura Calvet, who is a professor of the postgraduate course on local agroecological dynamization at the University of Barcelona. We'll also have with us Mar Carrera Vendrell, who's a journalist and editor and co-author of the book, and Mariona Espinet Blanch, who's a professor and also a researcher and co-author of the book. And we should also have with us Germán Llerena. He's about to arrive, who's an environmental educator at the City Council of Sant Cugat del Vallès. The four of them are co-authors of the book Tierra de Aprendizajes, 12 bellas historias para la agroecología escolar en Cataluña. A land full of lessons, 12 beautiful tales for school agroecology. Thank you very much for being here with us today. And we know that April the 23rd is the Day of Books here in Catalonia, and we thought, therefore, that it was a very good idea to speak about this book that has been recently published, so that we could also share with everyone these beautiful stories about agroecology for schools. But before giving the floor to the speakers, I'd like to say that this webinar is part of a cycle of conferences that we organize at Fundesplai within the Eat Live project that's funded by the EU Live program. And the goal of this program is to meet the goals of the European Green Pact, particularly the Farm to Fork strategy, i.e., to reduce the carbon footprint of food production, guarantee food accessibility for everyone, and ensure a food system that is fair and sustainable. And through different educational initiatives, we work in raising awareness regarding the huge environmental and social challenges that exist today that are linked to the food system, particularly considering the current climate change. And we have organized an exhibition in this regard, and we invite you all to our headquarters at the Prat de Llobregat in the Barcelona metropolitan area to visit this exhibition. And I'd like to share with you a short video of this exhibition now. Exhibition for a healthy and sustainable food system. Discover how we can change the world through the way we eat. Eat, act, impact.
Doncs molt bé, només recordar-vos que podeu fer preguntes en qualsevol moment.
I'd just like to remind you before we start that you can ask your questions through the Q&A tab at the bottom of the screen, and at the end of the conference there'll be some time devoted to discussion, and you'll also have a survey to assess the activity, and we would be very grateful if you could fill in this survey, this assessment survey. Now I will give the floor to Mariona, and thank you very much, all of you, for joining us.
Espero que em sentiu bé.
Hello, good afternoon. I hope you can hear me well. It's a pleasure, an honor to be here today with you presenting this book. It's always difficult to write a book, and it's always the result of different stories. And this book has been published by a specific publisher within a specific collection. It's part of a collection published by Pollen. Pollen is a publishing house that we love because it's part of our territory. It's located in Sant Cugat, where all the authors are. And this collection...
Perdoneu. Per tant, quina sessió farem avui? La sessió s'organitzarà ara en vista això.
So, I wanted to say that we are going to organize a session following this agenda. And then with Laura, we're going to be looking at the agroecological context in Catalonia, because all these stories form part of a context. And Mar will tell us about the stories included in the book that show the work done together by agroecology and education. And Mariona, Laura, Germán, and Mar are the co-authors, and we're here with you. As I was saying, this is a book published by Pollen. We have already published 3 books, and there is a new area that is School Agroecology, and the goal is to collect the different experiences and ideas from different educators and from the production chain, so that agroecology can advance in school. We call it School Agroecology because it is associated with the educational world, but it includes more things than just schools. And together with the publishing house and Germán Llarena, we decided to start this collection, the first one on school agroecology, and the second one collects a lot of the work conducted by the universities that promote eco-educational vegetable and fruit gardens. And now with this book, we are telling stories. And this book, well, you know how every book has its momentum, and ours has as a momentum Canada, and Lucie Sauvé, who is the professor who has written the foreword of our book. We liked a book that she wrote very, very much. We wanted to translate it. However, it wasn't that easy. It wasn't an easy process. So we thought, why should we translate the 10 stories of eco-food in Canada when we here have our own stories? So that's how it all started. We wanted to explain our beautiful stories in Catalonia, and instead of 10, we have 12 within the context of the postgraduate on agroecological dynamization. And in this way, this book was able to come about. Every book has many stories and people behind them. I don't know whether Mar would like to say something else now about the publishing house. Thank you, Mariona. I am very happy to be here today. In the case of this collection on school agroecology and all the books of the publishing house want to be relevant and important from the point of view of its contents and its format, because it wants to reduce the impact of publishing with certified paper, with local production, with local printing houses, and with environmental communication. That's why at the end of the book, we have this section here with all the environmental impacts and all the savings achieved through this process. We do this together with the Eco Edition Institution. And the goal is to promote school agroecology through the contents of the book, but also by the way that the books are published. Thank you very much, Mar.
Per tant, a veure, ara ens voldríem proposar-vos
Now, we would like to share a few ideas about school and agroecology. For us, it is an agroecologic transition that needs to be done at a social level and in the fields, but it's also important to do that in the schools. And that's how school agroecology started as an educational praxis. It's not an action, but a praxis. It's an idea of transformation with a theoretical support to change the school food system. And we like to use agroecology for this change, for this transition. And Laura will tell us more about the concept of agroecology afterwards. Our goal is to empower the members of the education community in the sense that they can be more active and be more aware of the transformation of their own school food system, based on a set of values and criteria that are consistent with the values of good education. For example, social justice, gender equality, cultural protection, and promotion of biodiversity. Therefore, we are within the framework of an education project for agroecology transition in the school food system. And for this, we need a map of this food system at the schools that is agroecology oriented. And in the map, we can see the different connections with the farmers, with the territory, and with the educational community. First of all, in a food system, it's important to understand the different items that make up this food system. Firstly, production. And the question would be, is there any food production at school? Yes, yes. Obviously, it's not the typical agroecology production, but there are school vegetable gardens, for example, and in this regard, there is waste created, and therefore there's a movement of materials. There are seeds and water used and tools as well. There's an impact on the families. Therefore, we can talk about school production. We're not going to make a living out of it, but we have have other types of benefits, educational benefits. All of this has an impact on another area of the school food system. That's transformation. Where does the transformation take place? Well, the schools have their kitchens. There are also cooking workshops. It's not the same to have a school kitchen than to have a professional kitchen, but it is a production area where waste is once again generated and energy is used and water is used. There is a lot of information about cooking recipes. So this is a very clear space of transformation, focus on the school and the school kitchen. And there is another important space, community. Community would refer to distribution. The kitchen was referring to transformation. And now we're talking about the distribution within the school community. There are exchanges of food and explanations, reports, stories created, ways of packing things. So this is a distribution space, not just for the distribution of products, but also of ideas and knowledge. Then we have this last area, and that is consumption per se. And this area has a very specific space because distribution refers to the community, as I just said. But here we're talking about the school canteen, where also breakfast can be eaten in other areas of the school. All of this is creating once again waste, and there are snacks and so on and so forth, and there is a contact with the family. So this is a system that usually is analyzed as not as a whole, but in a fragmented way, because it is not understood as a whole. And school agroecology works to create this consistent unity of the system and connect it with agroecology. And how can we do this connection? How can we do this? Well, first of all, we have the production, that would be the farms. Then we would have transformation, that would be the different factories. Then we would have the community as the shops, and then we would have social consumption. So agroecology has enabled us to organize this map of the school food system. And agroecology is understood as a discipline that is systemic and transdisciplinary. And school agroecology is also like this, because we have pluriepistemology if we consider science as one of these epistemologies. And we also have to include traditional knowledge, indigenous and non-indigenous knowledge, because this is something that is done in some countries. And this is another possibility. And then we have to look at the idea of educating and creating our own knowledge. And this is an important source of information, because we should also take into account the social movements such as food solidarity. And it's therefore a collection of different areas that get together instead of fragmenting them as we usually do in the Western world. And it's transdisciplinary because at school we work with different types of knowledge, and that are very necessary. It's important to have a social knowledge, a technological knowledge, and so on. But focusing on this transdisciplinary nature of the system. Always focusing on this idea of transformation. And agroecology, school agroecology, urges us to work within the school, but also outside the school. And now I will give the floor to Laura so that she can explain how agroecology is connected to the territory and how the work at the school can extend outside the school. Thank you, Mariona. I'd like to explain the broader context of agroecology and how these beautiful stories written in the book came about. We have a local agroecology dynamization that has allowed us to promote this type of project. Of course, there are some projects that are only focused on organic agriculture, and this shows us that the primary sector in Catalonia includes 1.31% of the working population. And the crops represent 26% of Catalonia, and 1/4 are of organic production, representing about 4,000 producers. This is data from 2019. The figures are growing year by year, and agroecology goes further beyond the production through organic methods. It means rethinking production and consumption. It goes beyond production, and as we just heard, the food system in the school includes also the consumption, the exchange of knowledge, and it also has a social dimension, an economic one, and a political one. And agroecology shows an alternative system to the globalized production and distribution agro-food systems, with the idea of increasing the sustainability of agro-food systems so that there is a change of model in the type of production and consumption that we have today. The idea is to go, as I say, beyond organic agriculture. The idea is to try to avoid certain agricultural inputs and be able to promote different natural systems, so we can have more ladybirds helping control some pests. So we have an ecosystemic interaction in this way. Additionally, we want to recreate social organization because very often farmers are isolated. Cooperatives are losing their strength in many areas, and the idea is to create this link with the other areas of the system, for example, with the consumers. This means that it's important for consumers to understand how hard it is to produce some food. And in this way, they can get to know their farmers. So it's not just going to the supermarket and buying a product, it's knowing what's the process behind those products. And the idea also is to promote local identities and knowledge. The idea is to have these multiple epistemologies with a local and global knowledge of agriculture. Mariona has told us about the school agroecology concept, and the idea is to move from traditional systems to other systems that are alternative systems that will lead to a change of infrastructures, of values. And it's a macro change, but it can be done step by step. The objective is for agroecology to be scalable horizontally and vertically. So we have more farmers, consumers, and institutions that form part of this agroecology system. This may seem very theoretical, but it involves changing the system so we can have more ecosystemic systems, and we can also change, for example, the purchase and sales system by buying through cooperative supermarkets or markets or directly from the farmers. And this will involve changing the public policies, because the farmers are not strong enough to go against the current system. Therefore, it's very important to teach agroecology at school so everybody is aware of its importance. And the idea of this agroecology dynamization, local dynamization, means putting into place all these ideas in the schools, in the territories, in small vegetable and fruit gardens. But we need this type of promotion through food sovereignty and the social and territorial cohesion and the social reproduction of local communities and the preservation of ecosystems. The idea is to strengthen the local population, having endogenous projects led by the local communities and requested by the local communities. And one of these strategies to develop agroecology is education, school agroecology. And we can learn a lot from it in this book through these very beautiful stories that Mar will tell us now about. Thank you, Laura. As I mentioned before, these beautiful stories started with this will of giving value to the work done by the primary sector, by the farmers, and also by different entities that are related to education. This book was born from all the aspects mentioned and also by the postgraduate on local agroecological dynamization And there are different interviews that were conducted to these 12 entities that we see on the screen. And Laura was my tutor of my postgraduate thesis, and it was key to be able to continue with this collection of food and agroecology school. Agroecology. You can see that these entities belong to different areas of Catalonia, Barcelona, Lleida, Pallars Sobiró, Tarragona, and others. There is also a strong presence of cooperatives, 6. We also have here associations represented, and also to coexistence projects and an environmental educational center. So we're talking about many different projects, and Las Uvagas would be an exception because it's an eco center, it's an educational center. However, the teachers have always been very much linked to the farming life in the Garrigues area. La Resta also has a strong link with a farmer who provides the cereal for the production of bread. And the projects are quite new, not all of them. The oldest ones are Can Coll, Les Uvagues y Lera, más la Sala Xameca, the newest ones. And as I said, we started with different interviews. I am a journalist, and we transform these interviews into stories, and each story is a chapter devoted to each of the entities. We see Aixarcolan on the cover of the book, and then we also have many others involved. And how did everything start? Well, is it the chicken or the egg? What comes first? As you can see, we were interested both on the production, but also on the education. We were interested in the educational objectives, and obviously we were also interested in the methodology. That's why we're here today, because we are very interested in the educational references. We also pose some questions about the educators conducting the activities and their impact, the impact of the activities. The presumption is very important, the first presumption, i.e. the educational activities within production projects in farms will be able to communicate and convey better the objectives of agroecology, because school agroecology, as Mariona explained, takes place within the schools. However, the visits and workshops done at the farms that serve the school are an extension of these spaces. Therefore, it was important to us to take into account these 12 entities, and they are experts, for example, in cultivating local varieties. And when we organize activities based on this agroecology perspective, they really knew what they were talking about. They were talking about their experience and based on their experience. So before I ask whether the first thing was the production or the education, the chicken or the egg. And we saw that some of these entities, first of all, are productive. They start with vegetable gardens, or they start baking bread, like some of the entities, and then they include an educational perspective, such as Laresta. They make bread, but then they started to organize some very interesting educational activities. So we see how each entity may start either from the production side or from the educational side. For example, Las Obagas is an eco center that's really interesting, and it's cooperating together with the education department. And classes are organized and workshops. Additionally, though, they decided to organize an activity with farms and schools for the production, the self-production of products, so that this education had this bonus of communicating much better the knowledge to the students. And I remember when I went there for the first time, and I made some sausages and I ate those sausages, and that was very impacting for me. And that's really key when we explain things to children. El Parc de les Olors is another example. We visited, and there are many parks like that. They're called scent and smell parks. And the founder started with a garden that could be visited, and then she thought that it was possible to develop an educational activity through this project. Some entities, such as the Can Coll Center or Lera Association, started with an education activity. However, these entities started at a point in time where agroecology was considered a thing for hippies, so to speak. So they believe it was important to share their knowledge, and they have their own seed bank. So they are also involved in production. Or the Shepherd's School. It is 100% educational. However, with their workshops with shepherds in Catalonia, they also have this other dimension, a productive dimension, and they are also trainers at the courses. Now, let's focus on the educational objectives. We've found two main educational objectives. Firstly, the need to raise awareness about the importance of transforming the food system, not just describing it, but transforming it. And this is explicit in the initiatives of Aixarcolan, Laresta, with a very interesting project, Mas la Sala, Mas las Viñas, Escola de Pastors, y Janet. L'Ortiga doesn't include it explicitly within its objectives, but they do mention this transformation. Another objective is bringing closer the receivers of the training to the farming activity, i.e. the children, the students can get to know this farming activity firsthand. Because as Laura mentioned, if we look at agroecology in Catalonia, we see how many farmers are active, but there is a disconnection between the urban world and the farming world, and this is seen in the school. So we have a double educational project to raise awareness about the farming activity through practical educational strategies. And Lera has a project like this one, also L'Ortiga, where they have a social activity associated with their vegetable garden, Mas La Sala as well, Obagas and Pun Eco are in Lleida, and their vegetable and fruit gardens are open to educational activities. And as I say, this is their main goal. On my PowerPoint, you can see some examples so that you can understand better this double objective in the words of the producers. On this second slide, we can also see the example of Mas La Sala that talks about participating in eco-social transformation and empowerment. At Mas Las Viñas, this is an agroecological space at the Usanés area. It's an ecological farm, and they promote agriculture. So they are involved in agroecology, but also in other types of agriculture. And the idea is not just to focus on the local traditional activities, but also on innovative systems. And Parc de les Olors, this is the scent and smell park, established some very specific goals, such as promoting the freedom of children, reconnecting with nature, and promoting that teachers participate in the activities together with the children.
Puneco, també ens van destacar fomentar aquesta descoberta del medi natural, de l'hort a Lleida, perquè realment molta gent de la ciutat de Lleida no coneix els propis horts.
At Puneco, an entity in Lleida, they also mention as a goal to promote the discovery of the rural area and to have respectful attitudes with living beings and the rural area. So it's all about awareness raising. Then Rurbans is the shepherd's school, and they refer to creating a new generation of farmers with this agroecological model. So these were some examples, and the idea of School Agroecology is to implement agroecology within the school. And each entity has used their own way of doing this. Aresta through bread, Mas Las Viñas through perma-agriculture. And we have observed a large diversity of methodologies. But the most important thing in every case is learning by doing, because the children in the workshops have to be able to experiment and enjoy the activity. This is a key aspect that I wanted to highlight.
en molts casos, el passar a l'acció, que també és quelcom molt propi de l'educació ambiental. I com
Also, moving to action, this is also another key aspect for agroecology and obviously for school agroecology.
O en el cas de la Xamec, posen molt en valor, com que és una xarxa de menjadors escolars.
In the case of the Xamec entity, they are a network of school canteens, and for them, it's important to highlight the opportunity provided by these school canteens. We also analyze the profile of the educators. Many of them have a background in biology and environmental education, and some of the educators are farmers and producers, and this is a very important combination. In the example of Las Vagas, the profile is very educational, but they also have this practical dimension.
M'he passat una diapositiva? No, perdoneu. Dels impactes, que ja seria l'últim punt.
Now, I'd like to finish with the positive impacts. The goal of the research was to include also the opinion of those who received the training and education activities. We weren't able to speak to the children, but we did speak to the teachers, and they mentioned that the school canteen can become a very important part of the school curriculum. And what the teachers also valued very much in these workshops and activities was the fact that the entities are actual entities, actual producers, actual farmers. So it shows the actual activity and the fact of being able to eat the products there, such as the sausages I mentioned before, but you can also eat yogurts or other products. The fact of eating the products there has a huge positive impact. Now, in each chapter of the book, we start with an illustration by some children who participated in the book process, and each person that was interviewed chose one specific drawing, such as the bees or the robin or the rake or an ant. So in this way, we have these symbols and this way of playing with symbols. By way of conclusion, so that we can move on to the discussion, we have seen that these 12 beautiful stories enable us to create schools that are committed with the transformation of the food system based on agroecology. And we have seen that this is beneficial for learning. It is beneficial to be able to touch the soil, to be there. And it's important as well to promote the dialogue between the farmers and the schools, because it's important to understand how hard their work is. And through this dialogue, we can have a better future. Here we have some tools for those teachers who have joined us today on this webinar. This is a map with several projects, well, many projects. We just chose 12 for the book, but there are many projects. There is also the Xamec agroecological toolset. And now we will move on to the discussion, but we wanted to mention this song from Latin America by Gustavo Santoya. Thank you.
D'acord, estic mirant les preguntes, hi ha unes 5 preguntes, d'acord, i us vaig passant.
We have several questions,
Me sembla que
and I will allocate them to the right person.
Per tu, ens pots dir on podem trobar el llibre?
The first question is for you, Matt. Where can we find the book? And how did you select just 12 stories? Is it possible to have more in another book? Well, the book is available in all the bookshops in Catalonia. It can be ordered, and it's also available on the Welland website, but it's better to buy them at the bookshops. And those 12 stories were references that I got to know through my postgraduate research. And the idea was to find initiatives that represented the Catalan territory. And of course, it would be great to have a second part because there are many other stories worth telling. Now, we have another question for Mariona and Germán due to their experience. The question by Mercedes is, how can we involve the kitchen teams in the monitoring of the agroecological transition of our school? This is absolutely key. They are a key team because we haven't really mentioned who is involved in each of the spaces of school agroecology, because we have teams in the kitchen, we have teams in the vegetable gardens, teachers, and also families. So there is a large set of people involved besides the teachers. And however, it's not easy to have this type of communication between these different people. How can we connect the kitchen team and the teachers? It's important to work as well with the families. So it's important to create communities and to develop networks. This cannot be done overnight, but school agroecology has to be a school project. If not, it won't work out. Additionally, Mariona, there's another question. Are the families and schools enthusiastic about the school agroecology projects? Do they show enthusiasm? And how do the students respond? And are there any differences between the different age ranges? Well, for families, the way their children eat, the way they eat in general is more important, and there is a lot of diversity, and it's a hot topic, and therefore it's important to work on it together. And school agroecology provides an integrated type of solution that goes further beyond food consumption. So to understand where all this comes from, it's important to involve families, and the teachers in this sense have to involve in the community, the parents, so that meetings are organized, weekends, and so on. We know that it's impossible to involve everybody, but the idea is to be able to reach at least those people who are interested in the topics. First, we need to locate these people, and we have to include them in the project and then start working. This is the strategy to start working. And Who are those crazy people who love this type of project? And the children and students, well, have different reactions. Now, teenagers are more and more involved in the topic of food. And in fact, what is eaten now at school or what students bring to school from home is very different from what used to be typical 10 or 20 years ago. And in this regard, I think there has been an improvement. However, we need to work harder. The students do respond. Some may think that it's something for little children, so it's important to update the activities and adapt them to the different age ranges. And it's important also to focus on the university food system, because the university food system is terrible, really terrible. But the population has changed, so there's a lot of work to be done. Thank you, Mariona. Now, I would like Mar to tell us how the dialogue starts. Does it start from the school or does it start from the entities? How does it work? Well, it depends. In some cases,
com el cas de
the entities such as Charcoland will visit the schools. However, we also have schools very often visiting different entities, and sometimes it doesn't happen in neither of these places because there are entities that work not just with agroecology, but also other activities. Well, all right. We have another question. Maybe you would like to answer it, Mar. How can you combine permaculture and agriculture? Agroecology, I mean. Well, there are entities, as I said, that do work with permaculture, and they have to follow certain guidelines, and they're involved in social movements and also with schools, and they have developed as well agroecology projects, such as an agro-construction project. So there is this dialogue between the different disciplines, because agroecology is just one dimension. Yes, I would like to add to this that there is this project in the environmental college, and sometimes agroecology is considered different from other types of agriculture or strategies. However, we have to remember that there are different production systems, and permaculture is more than just a production system. And there are political, social, and economic elements involved, such as biodynamics. There are different ways of production. So agroecology is a very wide framework, and it starts a dialogue with other theoretical frameworks with the goal of moving forward towards a healthier, more sustainable system. And education is one of the strategies. I don't know whether I have answered the question. It's not an easy question, but I just wanted to say that there is this dialogue.
Laura, és una molt bona pregunta, no? O sigui, si penséssim...
In fact, Laura, this is a very good question. If we think about this umbrella, which would be the umbrella, in fact, permaculture or agroecology? Would one be within the other or the other within the first one? And it would be great to continue with the discussion, but I'm afraid we've run out of time. Thank you very much for joining us here today. It's been a very interesting discussion, and congratulations for your book.
Moltes gràcies.
Also, congratulate Herman on our behalf. He hasn't been able to come, unfortunately. Thank you very much, as I said, and I hope to see the book very soon in all the bookshops. Thank you. Thank you.